Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Focused Radio. This is your host, Martin Friedman, and I'm here with my co-host, Christin Farmer, and we are here with our special guest who's very familiar to us, Mahdi. Hello, Christin, and hello, Mahdi. How are you both doing today?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah, doing pretty good. Good to be here. Good to see you all.
Same. I feel the same way. My voice is a little bit absent, but still glad to be here.
The voice is absent, but the personality and the character still shines through.
Yeah, right? The spirit is strong. The spirit is not shook at all. So, yeah, let's do this.
That's what's important. All right. So just so you all know, we're going to jump into a conversation. This is our New Mind series, which you all have been watching, and we've been getting great feedback on. And so we're going to jump in with a conversation with Mahdi about the concept of inner awareness. All right, Mahdi, so you've been on this podcast many times. You and I have essentially co-hosted many in the past before we started bringing in like Cindy and Martina and now Christin. But I really want you to share with our listeners and our viewers, what has your journey been around spirituality? So we talk a lot about the combination of spiritual consciousness and social consciousness in Soul Focus Group. But on the New Mind series of podcasts, we really want to hone in and focus on the spiritual path that we're all on. So if you could just share that journey with our listeners and viewers, I'd really appreciate it.
But you got enough time for that? What I like to do is like maybe identify key components or key parts of my journey. Because I grew up in a very spiritual family who would talk about spirits, who would talk about having relationships with the dead, who would actually, my grandmother would go outside when it was about to rain or weather was getting real bad, and she would do some things outside, signs she would make in the sky, and the clouds would go away. The rain would go away, literally. I've seen her do that so many times. So as a little boy, I grew up, scared to death, because I didn't understand. They didn't explain in any way to get us to understand, but they would say things. So the main thing was that I knew that there was more to me than my body. There was more to me than my mind at a very early age, because they instilled this whole idea of spirit. My great grandmother used to tell me a story. She called it the secret life of spirits. And she would say that when you lie down and go to sleep at night, your spirit does not sleep. Your spirit goes to work for you. And, we would hear stuff like that, but, as a kid, you don't really pay that much attention to it. You listen subconsciously, you're picking stuff up, but you're really not leaning into it because you think they're crazy anyway. They're crazy, they're like, it's to my secret lives of spirits. But as you get older, you reflect back on those things and you see how your path was sort of like laid out before you already. So like the path I'm on was really already laid out for me already through their teaching. So sometimes it's hard for me to pull apart their teachings and my journey, right? Because we choose our parents. I really believe that. And when you choose your parents, you choose your grandparents. You choose your great-grandparents. You choose who you're going to be connected to. And when you choose that, you also choose a lot of the major choices that they've made in their lives. You're going to be a victim to it or a recipient of it, right? So your life is, in a lot of ways, predestined until you get back into your own mind. Now, one thing that they would say to me on a regular basis, and all the older people in my community, little country town I grew up in, we use this terminology, first mind. You ever heard that before? Follow your first mind?
Definitely.
Right?
Thank you.
Yeah, they would say it all the time. Follow your first mind. Follow your first mind. And I was one of those very smart kids who always asked a lot of questions. So when they said first mind, I was like, well, do we have a second mind? They never would talk about the second mind, but I fill in the blanks that we have to have a second mind if we got a first mind. And so my journey was really like I was catapulted into my journey full speed ahead because I was looking for a solution to get out of the poverty we were in, to get out of the suffering that we were in. The suffering and the conditions of poor. I mean, we lived in a 2-bedroom shotgun house with about 10 people in it. No inside plumbing. We'd take a bath standing up at the face bowl in the bathroom. Toilets didn't work. So it was dire poverty. To get water, we had to go outside in a 5-gallon bucket to put water in the bucket, bring back to flush the toilet, to heat, to take the little bath in the sink. So I was like, how in the hell I get out of hell? I want to get out of hell. So everything I was interested in learning was, how do I use this to get out of the condition we're in? Not just myself, but my 2 brothers, my 2 younger brothers. So I was dedicated to this stuff at a very, very early age. So the idea of First Mind made me start really understanding that there was something to us more than what you can see. And being in the country, a little slow country town, I had enough time to get in touch with my own inner awareness. First Mind is a part of inner awareness. Second Mind is outer awareness. And second mind is simply ego, right? So we are assigned that. We are assigned the ego through socialization and programming. That becomes our second mind. Now, we know that's already set up. That's a part of the design. Come into this world, the world is already in motion, and you come through a period of amnesia. All of us experience a period of spiritual amnesia. And the reason why we experience that spiritual amnesia is because we didn't want us to be able to remember the trauma of being in that small space, growing up, our body in those 9 months. How painful could you imagine that was to be in that tiny space, growing and developing, if we were in our full consciousness? It'd be a very, very traumatic thing to remember. So we had an agreement among beings that we were going to, shadow that in our minds so we wouldn't remember. So therefore, we go through a temporary process of amnesia. We don't know who we are, even though we're ancient. All of us are ancient. So we come here, probably the first 7 years of our life, maybe 8 or 9 sometimes, depending on your environment. You don't know who you are. So the world says, okay, I'm going to tell you who you are. I'm going to tell you who you're going to be. I'm going to tell you how to be it. Your parents do it. Teachers do it. Media does it. All these things are telling you who to be. That becomes your second mind. So now inner awareness is the tool, the tool you have to use to align your first mind and your second mind together, to get your second mind in alignment with your first mind. Because your first mind has everything in it. Everything about your trip that you came here to make this lifetime is all in your first mind. It was all, we made pre-decisions before coming here. And one of the biggest pre-decisions that we made before coming in was, who was our parents? You know how much influence they have on our life just based upon choosing who our parents were, right? And what we'd have to experience based upon the struggles that they were having, So that led me, when I graduated from college, I left the church because I was ordained minister at the age of 16. And I noticed that it wasn't helping me to get out of the condition we were in. It was helping me to cope with it, but not get out. It was no real solution for getting out. So I tried drugs. And when I tried drugs for a little while, I saw quickly that this ain't the way out. So then religion became a big thing. And I saw that wasn't the way out. Joined the Nation when I graduated from college. Saw that wasn't the way out, right? But they were all parts of the path to finding the way out. And finding the way out was really what we call spirituality, is really transforming the relationship you have with yourself such that you are 100% on your own side. Because our biggest problem is most of the choices and decisions that we make not in alignment with ourselves. Our second mind makes a decision without any knowledge whatsoever of who we are and why we're here. So what it does, it makes us a slave in a lot of ways. Because we make decisions from our second mind that are not loyal to our first mind. And our first mind got to figure out a way to solve the problem, to get us free again, to be able to make another set of choices, because every choice you make has a shelf life. Some choices last 10 years, some choices last 5, some choices last 1 minute. But every choice you make has a consequence. And the universe binds you to it. So one of the biggest things you could get is become so unaware that the choices that you are making are choices you can live with. And I mean that literally, live with, not survive, live with, thrive with. Most of our choices that we make are they are examples of conflict of interest. Most of us live our lives, for the most part, in a conflict of interest within ourselves. So we don't get a chance, we haven't gotten a chance for the most part to really discover how powerful we are until we are working where there's no conflict of interest in ourselves. I met my teacher, Brother Wali Muhammad, Master Wali, we used to call him the Black Buddha. Because he was brilliant. Not only was he brilliant, but he was very wise. And he helped me to be able to see far beyond religion, far beyond dogmatic stuff, and to really understand that this was about relationships with ourselves and everyone else. And how do we become stewards of the power that we have as human beings to help other people bring out their power. So I've been on the power path for a very long time, but you can't have power without inner awareness. If you are banking off of following everything on the outside of you, and you're not listening to your first mind, you're not listening to your soul, your internal self, then you lost. Because the world don't know who you are. Your ego does not know who you are. It was not a part of the initial conversation when we decided to come into this world. So I learned under Brother Wali for 5 years. And we would meet every day, me and 9 other brothers. And we would go through spiritual teachings. We had to read 150 books. It was mandatory. And the whole goal was freedom. But we thought during that time, freedom from this world, freedom from, the oppression of this world. But it's really freedom from our own oppression, freedom from our own self-inflicted wounds. Because we create so many self-inflicted wounds, and we almost never see ourselves as being the culprit for creating the injuries that we are experiencing in our life. So that's just a little jest on our journey. There's so much more to it, but I don't want to saturate. I want to give y'all a chance to ask me questions and whatnot.
Thank you for that, Mahdi. So I have a couple questions. For one, because you talked about inner awareness, and that's not something that I've ever heard before. So if you could just clarify what is the meaning or the concept specifically around inner awareness. And then my second question is, what is the point of all of this? Like, what are the benefits of us getting our first and second mind on the same track, or to be free of conflict? And because you mentioned something about freedom, right? So
right.
What are the benefits in us getting those two minds on track? What are we here actually to do? Or
right. Now that's some very good questions. And I'm gonna start with that last question and answer it first, because it's very simple. The purpose of getting our second mind in alignment with our first mind is so we can enjoy ourselves. We came here to experience us in this form, in this time, place, etc. We really were so excited about coming into this world because we want to enjoy ourselves. And what happened is when we go through the spiritual amnesia, the temporary spiritual amnesia, and the world tells us who we are and is not who we are, creates that conflict of interest, so we're unable to enjoy ourselves. So for years, I didn't get how special I was. I didn't get the party that I was. Because I see everybody as like a unique party that you come into this world to be able to enjoy. And oftentimes we live our entire lives never really getting that it's your party. The party was in your honor. You're here for you. You're here to experience you. You're here to give people the opportunity to interact with your genius, right? So as long as you're in conflict, and the world knows that, the world knows, look, as long as Christin is in conflict with herself, I could use you. Because you're not on the same page. As long as Martin is not on the same page with himself, I could use Martin. Long as Mahdi is not on the same page with us, I can use Mahdi. I can do whatever I want to do with him. Until that point in which we get in total harmony with ourselves on the same page, everything changes. You discover there really is no enemy, because the world could not do this to us. The world got us to do it to ourselves. Because the world is so clever. And I think it's all part of the design to make it fun, to make it challenging. It's to allow you to be with yourself 24 hours a day. And yet you wake up 30, 40, 50 years from now, you don't know who the hell you are. That's how deep this is. That you can be with yourself all that time and not know yourself. So the question is, how does that happen? How does that happen? What would y'all say the reason behind a person being able to be with themselves that long and wake up 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now and say they don't know who they are, they don't know why they're here? How does that happen, you think?
It seems to be that amnesia you spoke about.
Yeah, I would say true to amnesia, but there's something else, another component to it, because think about if you was, like in a movie, you see somebody in the movie who have amnesia. Mm-hmm. They start asking a whole bunch of questions, don't they? When they figure out they don't know who they are, they start asking everybody questions. Do you know me, where I come from? They start doing research. So how are you going to be with yourself and have amnesia and not be asking any of those questions? Right? So you would naturally start asking everybody, your mom and them, your daddy and them, grandmother and them, where we come from, who are. But the average person don't even ask those questions. Now, the reason why you gotta say, well, why don't we ask those questions? Why aren't we curious about ourselves? And the only reason why we wake up 40, 50 years from now and realize we don't know who we are, because nothing we did fulfilled us. And we start recognizing that the life we've been living ain't the life we come here to live. And we're like, damn, I ain't been happy not one day in my life. I've had momentary chances with it, but wasn't nothing consistent. Here's what happens. The world develops outer awareness in us. And the outer awareness precedes inner awareness. So before we listen to the voice inside ourselves, we listen to the voices outside ourselves. And we learn to follow the voices outside ourselves. And the voices outside ourselves don't know who the hell we are. Nobody knows who you are but you. It's an inside-out job. That's why I said the world didn't do it to us. The world got us to do it to ourselves.
You know what's so interesting? Oh, I'm sorry, Martin.
No. You go ahead, Kristen. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to just point out something that you said, Mahdi, that's so important when you said, like, why aren't we asking these questions about, like, who we are? Well, what comes to mind is that as children, we do, right? But a lot of times we are shut up, right? It's like you asking too many questions, you know?
Right. Usually that time, though, Kristen, the time when we're asking questions as children, we in the amnesia, but the program has not shadowed our mind completely yet. In other words, the subconscious program haven't been completely downloaded. So we're still in contact with our first mind. And we're asking questions, but we don't know that's what it is. But like you said, after a while, the program sort of like not turns it off, but makes it so hard to hear. Because you're constantly trying to please other people, trying to please your parents, school teachers, friends. All that becomes outer awareness. Everybody you're trying to please, everybody you're trying to impress, that becomes you're listening outside versus listening inside.
Yeah, thank you, Christian. I was going to ask something very similar, or say something very similar because, we talk a lot about, all three of us talk a lot about the genius study, right? And so we say at 5 years old, one of the reasons why we're geniuses is because we're still asking why about everything, right? We want to understand, why am I here? What is my purpose? And I believe we've talked about this before on the podcast, and I believe both of you had a similar experience. But I remember at 6 years old, asking my mother, why am I me? Why was I born Marty Friedman? I remember very specifically, like where I was in the car, where we were driving to, and, she didn't have an answer. As I wanted to know, like, I really, like, my spirit was like, okay, now I'm here. What's this about? And right. I was looking for the adult in my life to guide me. So I think my life experience aligns perfectly with what you said. And I eventually, not very long after that, was just very strongly discouraged. Stop asking those questions. Don't ask why all the time. Don't ask those stupid questions. It's basically what I was told, which is really, they were the smartest questions, but I was told they were stupid questions.
Yes, that's a good point. But, the thing is, as parents, when we go through our amnesia state and nobody is there to help guide us out of it, because we don't know what our job is as parents. Our job is to protect the minds of our children so until they get to the point to where they can come back online. When I say come back online, their memory comes back. They start remembering who they are. And then you create an environment that supports them in play. Because that's how we learn who we are again. That's how we remember who we are, through play, through fun and play. Do you see how brilliant that is? The universe will set it up. That the way you learn about who you really are is through fun and play. Shouldn't it be fun to be you? I mean, that's the thing that you come here for. You come here for you. You come here to be you. You come here to show yourself off. You come here to make your contribution. You come here to enjoy you. It should be fun. But what happens is, because of certain conditions, like conditions I grew up in, very poor conditions, I didn't play. I didn't have no playtime as a child. I was serious at 5 years old. I was serious enough to beat concrete because the conditions were so harsh. All I wanted to know is how in the hell I get out of this place. And then I took it on myself. How do I get my brothers out of here? So I started studying this stuff and started asking questions. And even when they threatened to have me punished for asking certain questions, I kept asking them. If not verbally, I kept asking them inside my head.
So much of what you said is, it's so deep, but it's fascinating. And it's very interesting. It reminds me so much of life's mysteries and, asking these questions, and you are absolutely correct around the fun and the play. And it just makes me think about how we even put parameters around play for children, right? Like you get 20 minutes, 30 minutes of recess, for example, in school, and how we just program our children and we should force them to be mature. And you need to leave those childish things alone. But we are all essentially still children, just in a more mature physical form.
Well, the beautiful thing is, Christin, is that the children are closer to the divine than we are. Because when kids come out, they are in tune to their inner awareness. They have to be taught out of it. Because the inner awareness is before a short period of time, will teach them who they are if given the space to explore themselves through play and fun. But as parents, nobody ever taught us that. Our job, we say, was to prepare our children for this world, which meant we adultified them. We adultify them so fast they don't get a chance, because all adultifying is us stamping our perspective about who we think they are onto them, imprinting it on their subconscious mind, the way they grow up and believe that's who they are. I work with people in my coaching practice who were lawyers and doctors and had invested all kind of money and resources to become who they thought they were, and woke up one day and realized they didn't want to do none of that stuff. Right? When their memory started coming back, when they started getting back into their first mind, they're recognizing, man, this is not me. And I think that's one of the greatest travesties of this world, is that the world will give us a life that is not ours. And oftentimes you don't wake up later on to discover that it's not the life that you came here to live. And then you got to do what? The beautiful thing is you have the power to transform it overnight.
What do we do as a society to take better care of and protect that sense of play in children? Because so much is happening in terms of systems, structures, and institutions. So how do we break out of this mold that we've been conditioned in to be better stewards of children and cultivate more play?
That's a good question. And the answer is very simple. Listen. We don't listen to our children. We've already labeled them as being blank tablets, which is bullshit. None of us are blank tablets. We all come in here with our own consciousness. And through conversation, if you listen to kids, you will see them working it out in their conversations with you. They're working out who they are. But to listen, because as adults, what we do, we pretend to listen to our children. Because we got so much stuff going on in our life, and we're trying to pay the bills, trying to attend to this. So when it comes down to listening to the kids, we don't listen to them. So we don't get a chance to get to know them. You can't get to know another being unless you listen to that being. And especially in the pure state that children are in, pure innocent state that they are in. If we learn to listen to them and be present to them, we can help them, accelerate back into their memory of themselves than we do in this society. We oftentimes contribute to their prolonged struggle with themselves because we want them to be what we think they should be, right? And they have almost no say-so in it. I grew up as a Christian. I didn't choose that. I know some people will get mad at me saying I'm not saying I'm not an anti-Christian. I still consider myself a Christian. A Christian is a part of my subconscious programming. So I'm still using the technology from there to help guide my life. But I didn't choose Christianity. My parents chose that for me. You get what I'm saying? So it wasn't until I came back online that I began to start choosing different spiritual walks for myself, because these spiritual walks are not cages. They are perspectives. They help you see life from a different place. Christianity is seeing life from one place. Islam is seeing things from a different place. Hinduism is seeing things from a different place. Judaism is seeing things from a different place. But we've become so attached to these things because we think this is who we are. And we forgot we're the one that created this stuff. Since we're the ones that created it, it can't be who we are. There's some more stuff to create. But we become so afraid that if we admit that there's more to this, some kind of way it's going to take value from us. That's so far from the truth. But that's one thing you could always bet. When it comes to perspectives, there's always more.
I love that. Thank you. This has been a powerful conversation. And as many times as I've talked to you, Mahdi, and to you, Christin, too, I'm still learning a lot on this call. And I'm finding it very grounding because, what I'm really interested in you sharing with us, in addition to what you've already said, Mahdi, is like, can you speak specifically to like how Innerwareness can be something that helps us, I say be grounded, because that's just the way I'm feeling right now. Like this conversation, the reason why I say this is a grounding conversation to me is because it makes things make sense that haven't made sense a lot of our lives, that there's been a lot of questions for a lot of us that have never really been able to be answered. And this, what you're laying out helps answer some of those questions. So if you could talk about Innerwareness as like a specific tool and how you get it and what you do with it. I know that's pretty linear, but sort of practical. No. But yeah,
it's a good question. Think of Innerwareness as the way back home. Outer awareness is you still lost. Now, I'm not saying there's no value in outer awareness. You need to be aware of your outer world, but it needs to be weighed by what's in your inner world, because who you really are is in your inner world. So this is what this outer world teaches us. We develop ego habits, which is second mind. First mind is soul, ego is second mind, right? So soul approaches things completely differently from ego, wouldn't you agree? That our soul does not see the world the way the ego see the world. And the reason why that is because the soul knows who we are. The soul is who we are. So it's not a guessing game for our soul, right? So our soul does not want to waste any time comparing itself to anybody else because it knows it's unique and it come here to experience the uniqueness of itself, right? So the soul, on one level, the first mind or Innerwareness is focused entirely on appreciation. Appreciation of difference within self and appreciation of difference within others. So you're just walking out through the world looking at all those differences and you're like, wow, this is a beautiful garden. There's so much to learn from, so much for me to be able to develop as a result of interacting with all these unique beings, right? Who are in a unique form, come to express a unique thing. Now, at the same time, on the ego side, the world is teaching us to compare. So you compare yourself, you compare what your situation is, you compare how far you've gotten versus somebody else gotten. And what it does is create a sense of competition in you. So now you're beginning to get the first gist of outer awareness that's pulling you away from your inner awareness. So you're not getting a chance to appreciate yourself because you're so focused on comparing yourself to other people. Your eyes on everybody else. Remember, we talk about that in doing the social justice work, because the side effect of social justice work and spiritual work, to be honest with you, the way it's been done, we focus on everybody else and not ourselves. Our outer awareness is far stronger than our inner awareness, which means we're out of balance. Because you can't be in this world and don't have outer awareness. You need it. Like they say, you can't live without an ego. You really can't. You got to have some sense of outer awareness. But your outer awareness needs to be guided by inner awareness, intuition, instincts, common sense, sense of humor. It's a whole lot more inner senses that we have, far more than 5. We have maybe 22 inner senses, right? And when we get in contact with those inner senses, and those inner senses are guiding our outer senses, man, we are powerful. We are some powerful beings. But the world say, well, if they become powerful, they're not going to follow this foolishness, this trickery, right? So you say, so here you got compare, ego, appreciate. So on the next level, you got pleasing. Ego wants to please. Because ego doesn't know who he is, ego is trying to pay for affection. So we go into relationships and we work hard to be loved. We work hard to prove that we're worthy. So we try to please the people we're in a relationship with. It's some work. I spent most of my life in that place trying to please people. So when you're in that place of trying to please people, you are not at all focused on who you are. You're trying to be something for everybody that you come into contact with that you believe is more important than you. And that could be a lot of people. Now on the soul side, the soul is not trying to please people. The soul is trying to care for people. Starting first with caring for itself. And you think about, how do we demonstrate care for ourselves? The greatest demonstration of care for ourselves is making choices that are in our best interest. That's how you know you care about yourself. If you're making choices that do not align with your own best interest, that means what? You don't care about yourself. And you don't care about yourself because you're not focused on yourself, because you got to find yourself first, right? That's why I said, inner awareness is the route home. Home. When you say home, what do you hear if you say home over and over again? What you hear? What phonetic sound do you hear when you say home?
Oh, like
is that the
Om.
Yeah. He said,
and
he kept saying it, home.
And Om is, when we talk about Om, we talk about the language of the universe, the entire universe, right? So home is, inner awareness is taking us back to Om, getting in tune with ourselves completely. Because when we can get in tune with ourselves completely, now we can demonstrate care for ourselves. As soon as you start demonstrating care for yourself, aligning your decisions with what's in your best interest, you stop trying to please people, because it's a waste of damn time. Anyone being pleased is an inside job. If I'm gonna be pleased by some gift you gave me, it's because of something that I told myself, something that I'm dealing with inside myself that allows me to enjoy it. You could jump and make backflips. It ain't gonna change whether I'm gonna be satisfied or pleased with what you do. So that's very important. So now you think about, if you follow in the road of pleasing, you end up like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, on a yellow brick road, away from home, far away from home. And what's Dorothy trying to do? Get back home. The secret meaning behind that movie was she was trying to get back to being one with herself, because that's where home really is. Now, the beautiful thing is that home is also where? Where is home? Because we say it all the time, where home is. Where is home?
Home is where the heart is.
Where the heart is. Now, what is that telling us? It's telling us when we get back to our heart, our whole heart, we home. We in unity with the universe. But if you spend so much time focusing on everybody else, you don't find your way home. There's no place like home. Now, what does that mean? Home is not a physical place. It's a vibrational frequency that we tap into when we get back in alignment with ourselves. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Now, on another level, you got ego, outer awareness, trying to impress people. All right. Now, impressing is a cousin of pleasing. It's a little step up. But it's very, very deceptive. Because what you're doing is you're trying to convince people that you're worthy of something. In a sly way, you're manipulating them and also competing with them on a very low grade level. Now, on the other side, instead of impressing people, what do you think the soul is interested in? Stop not impressing people. What do you think the soul is interested in on the other end?
The first thing that comes to my mind is I think the soul's interested in remembering and having, like, the other thing that I think of is like joy and alignment. Those are the words that come to mind.
Right. Now, if you look on the side of impressing, so the soul is operating on the internal level and it knows the way to really make things happen, right? So instead of trying to impress people, the soul just shares with people. Share. We're here to share. We all here, this is a big old playground. We're here to share the playground. We're here to share the earth. We're here to share our life. We're here to share our experiences. We're here to share what we love, share what we don't like. We're here to share. And the more we share, the more we grow. Sharing is not the same thing as giving. Two different things. Giving, like for example, you could clean out your closet and give away all the clothes you wouldn't wear in your closet, right? And it's a beautiful thing. You give away your clothes. But sharing them is a whole different thing. Oftentimes, give an example of you got this last piece of pie. You've been at work all day thinking about. Can't wait till you get home to dive into that pie. It ain't a big piece. It's a little bitty piece. And you finally get home and you're watching television and you pull that piece of pie up, and one of your kids come say, "Mama, Daddy, can I get a piece?" And you're like, "God, dog." Inside yourself, you're saying that I gotta share my pie with this person. See, when we share, we connect. Sharing is a very important thing because the soul wants to connect with other souls. So we teachers us don't try to impress people, just share. So when you talk to people, you don't try to teach them, you just share your experiences with them. You share. Look how this impacted me. It might help you. Not teaching people, not talking down, because we all souls, we all equal. There ain't no soul that's higher than another soul. All that foolishness and stuff we picked up from outer awareness based upon egos, how the ego see the world. Because the ego is always in competition. The soul is always in cooperation. So you got two different paradigms. Inner awareness is bringing us to cooperation with ourselves, cooperation with each other for the greater good of life. And on the ego side, second mind, all about competition. All about competition. So we go from impressing to proving, trying to prove ourselves to people, right? And the last one is competing on the ego side. And on the soul side, you got cooperation and agreement. You got agreement. Instead of proving, you got agreement. And instead of competing, you got cooperation. This is what's driving how our soul is driven. So it creates inner awareness, more inner awareness. You become more and more aware of the power within yourself. And it don't mean you ignore the outer awareness. You use it to navigate through the world. But once you connect your second mind to your first mind, oh, it's on and popping now. Now you can enjoy yourself. So you what you did is like, you know, in the Bible it says God created man in his own image and likeness. That's really not accurate. What they're talking about is the first mind created the second mind in his own image and likeness. So when we train our ego to look like our soul, we got the window to our soul. Our ego is supposed to be the window to our soul because it's in alignment with our soul. So when you meet our ego, you're meeting us. When you see me, you've seen the Father. They are one. So ego is supposed to be one with the soul. But the world has gotten us to see ego, first of all, as an enemy and not as a tool of this world. It's a tool of this world that we have to retrain, recalibrate to be in alignment with our soul. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Because once we get that done, which requires us to focus on ourselves, we cooking. We cooking with gas, as my grandmother used to say back in the day. Cooking with gas, baby.
Let the church say amen.
Let the church say amen. See, so I went through all that. I was, a minister in the church. I was going to be a pastor of this church in Texas, in the mosque, studied Buddhism. So now, how would it look for me trying to decipher which one is good and which one is not? All of them were good. Our ego is so full of fear before it marries our soul that it makes everything that don't agree with it wrong, which means that we're not growing spiritually, right? And what's the main ingredient for growing spiritually? The main ingredient. What do y'all think the main ingredient? If y'all had to give me, what you think is the most important ingredient to grow spiritually, what would that ingredient be?
I would just say experience.
Experience, okay. What you say, Martin?
I would say probably perspective.
Perspective. All of them are good. The main ingredient is letting go.
Oh yeah.
You can't grow if you don't let go.
That's a good one.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's the reason why we have so much intimacy and fighting in the world, because people are learning new things, but when they get in contact with something new that contrary is what they learned before, they don't want to let it go. They'd rather double down on, even though they know it's not effective, they'll double down on it rather than letting it go. You can't grow if you don't let it go.
I definitely
trauma.
Let the church say, let the church and temple say amen at the end of that one, and the mosque too, because you can't grow if you don't let it go.
You gotta let it go.
Yeah, and that's something that is really hard for all of us. And it's something that I've been on for a long time. And I remember talking to people like, I don't know how to give myself permission to let go, because it feels like you have to give yourself permission, because it feels like antithetical. It feels like the opposite of everything that you've been taught your whole life. Like, oh, the way to be successful is you hang on, you be in control, you know what I mean? You like prove your points,
Yes.
So I literally had to learn how to teach myself how to give myself permission to start to let go.
It's so essential to growing. You can't grow without it. I'm gonna tell you something. Human beings on this planet would start to enjoy ourselves. We'd make a heaven on earth so fast if we let go of all this race stuff. If we let go of all of the stuff that has happened in the past and let it go and connect to the idea of us being who we really are, it would happen so fast. Matter of fact, it's happening now. It's beginning to happen now. You got people that's struggling they're holding on tight because they're terrified because they don't have clarity, right? Clarity is something that we have to get, because Innerwareness brings you to clarity, which is home. Home and clarity are the same thing. When you get home, you got clarity. You can see into time. Time don't exist no more. You can see beyond this thing they call time. You can see the whole thing once you get into clarity. But the way to clarity runs through courage. You can't get to clarity without courage. And the thing you have to have the biggest amount of courage for is to let go. Have the courage to let go. Have the courage to redefine yourself. Have the courage to become someone else besides the person you've been beating your head up against the wall to be. Have the courage to do that. Let it go. Let it go. And then practice it long enough and you have confidence. It's a second level. So you got courage, confidence, and confidence brings you to clarity. When you practice confidence, and all confidence means is when you practice trusting yourself. So your first mind want to know, are you going to trust me? Are you going to trust me? Are you going to have confidence in me? Or are you going to keep having confidence in your outer awareness? When somebody else tell you to go, you're going to go there, you're going to go there. I need you to have confidence in me. That's what your soul said. I need you to have confidence in me because I know you.
Yeah, maybe even to wrap us up and close this out as one of the last questions. How does one let go? I mean, it seems to be a very simple concept and something that we say so easily to ourselves and others, like just let go. How does one reach a place where they're able to let go?
You know, I was thinking when you were asking that letting go should be easy as breathing air. But it's not because we attach our identity to things. So once we understand that we are not our things, we're not our titles, we're not our body, we're not what people think about us, letting go becomes so easy. That's like our test. Our test is what you're gonna hold on to and what it's gonna cost you to hold on to this, because everything you're holding on to that don't serve you is costing you. It's very expensive. That's why in the Egyptian mystery system, that when you cross over to the other side to meet Thoth, you put your heart on a scale. And on the other, on one side of the scale, your heart is on that, and the other side is weighed against a feather. And it said that if your heart weighs more than a feather, you got to go back because you ain't do no living. You can't go make it into the afterlife. But it's symbolic of the reality that if you're not letting go, you're holding on to too much shit. And your heart is getting heavy. Heart is getting heavy because you're not expressing your whole heart. Your whole heart. Remember, home is where? Where the whole heart is. Not a piece of your heart, where your whole heart is. And we could really enjoy this life. We ain't gotta wait for none of this shit to be over to enjoy our life. We enjoying our life now. Those of us who woke up to the gig, we enjoying our life. That's our mandate. Go out into the world and enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself, enjoy yourself, enjoy yourself, enjoy yourself. If you ain't enjoying yourself, shame on you. I know I lived long enough to not enjoying myself. It was miserable, it was suffering. Suffering. And suffering is the result of suffocating your inner awareness. If you suffocate your inner awareness, you will suffer.
Thank you, Mahdi. Thank you, Christin, for that question. This has been awesome. I feel like there's definitely like a part 2 and maybe a part 3 in here too, to explore it a little bit deeper. Christin, I'm glad you could come on because you know, just to give your perspective and ask the questions that are coming up for you. I think it was awesome. So yeah, Mahdi, I just want to thank you for taking the time with us.
Thank y'all for having me. I really enjoyed this. To be able to talk about this stuff is important because so often you don't meet conversations where you can go into this kind of stuff. Because I'm like this. I don't go into nobody's house unless I'm invited. So unless you ask me questions, I ain't going to park up next to you and just start talking. I don't have the right to do that. This is your life. This is your journey. But if you say I'm having trouble and I need help, I raise my hand. I got you.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did. Christin, you have any thoughts about, I know you were hearing about Innerwareness in that particular terminology for the first time. Is there anything that you want to share as we close out today?
It makes perfect sense to me. It's really full circle, you know, just understanding a bit more of why we are and what our purpose is and how we get back to aligning our first mind with our second mind, and knowing now that, you know, ego is not a bad thing as it is sort of portrayed in, you know, media and culture, like having a big ego. And, you know, like this offered a lot more clarity around the ego's purpose and what we are to do with the purpose. And, you know, also the point about home. And I could never ever pronounce this word that I dropped in here. It's Hirai, but it means a deep longing for something, especially one's home. And that brought that full circle to me, that word, because that word has been sitting with me for a good 6 or 7 years. I first heard it on the documentary Gloria Vanderbilt that Anderson Cooper did with his mom before she passed. And she was an artist. And one of the pictures right at the beginning of the documentary, she paints that word. And she talks about this longing for home. And so what Mahdi was talking about really brought that into perspective for me, you know, for the first time, around what that means and that longing for home. I think that we, of course, all share. And so, you know, what Mahdi shared, what you shared today, it just really makes sense. And I really want the world to hear this. You know, I really want people to hear this and notice. And someone said a comment to me earlier today and said, well, Christin, you just need to, you just have to find your soul tribe. And I was like, I have. They're called the Soul Focus Group.
That was easier. That was easier.
Right.
We made it easy. That's what we call it the name we call it, to make it easy. Right. You got to think about it.
So this was great. Thank you so much, Mahdi, for your words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Martin, for having me on here.
Man, we're glad you found us. We're glad our souls all found each other in these lifetimes, man. Because it's exactly what we are. We're part of a soul tribe, and that's what we're trying to get back to that. So, Mahdi, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and our Soul Focus Group family. Sending you love and light and appreciation for you taking the time. Yeah,
can I say this?
Please.
Well, next time when I come back on, I want to talk about sadomasochism.
Okay. that's a hell of a tease. That's what they call a tease in the podcast business.
Because we live sadomasochistic lives.
Yes, sir.
We seek pleasure through pain, through suffering. And we've made that a way of life. The average person you meet is a sadomasochist. But you know, when two people that's practicing sadomasochism go into a session with each other, they always create a safe word.
Yes, sir.
Things get too painful, you say that word and the pain stops. You know what that word is?
What's that?
On the universal level, to bring our sadomasochism to an end? Home.
All right, Mahdi, that's a hell of a tease right there, man. That's a beautiful way to end. We'll definitely have you back.
If you're tired of trying to find pleasure through pain,
get home.
Stay tuned to the next episode.
Yeah, stay tuned to the next episode and start getting home now too. Don't wait. All right. Well, thank you so much, both of you. And thank you to our Soul Focus Group family, or our Soul Focused Radio family. Thank you for listening to us. And we appreciate all of the great feedback we get for what we do. Know that we love you, we care about you, and we're so excited you're on this journey. Please help us grow. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit like and subscribe and share. Subscribe to us on all the podcast channels, and go to soulfocusedgroup.com. It should be in the link in the chat. So we thank you all again, and then we ask the same thing we ask of you every time, and that is to stay well, stay safe, and most of all, stay soul focused.